Start over again?
Yes.
Yes, start over again. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to bring this, call this meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that council, in the council chambers here, Councillor Cannon, Councillor Hatfield. We've got Councillor Bill Chase online. And we have Alex online, Kevin, and we have our guest, Mary Hartshell.
And I believe Manuela is
And
also.
Manuela, you're online too?
She's iPad.
Okay. You're
Good
on that?
evening. I show up as iPad.
Okay, I see Dan's there too. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, we'll move on to disclosure of community interest. Anybody have anything to declare? Seeing none. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. I need one mover. Councillor Cannon.
Yep.
Okay. So read the motion.
Resolved that the agenda for the corporate planning meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 11, 2022 be approved as amended.
All in favor? Motion carried. We'll move on to the delegation. Mary, you online there now?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. We'll start with your deputation, and you're free to have the speaker.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you for letting me present this. My name is Mary Harbosian. My husband, Marty Roger, and I will both present. We are here to address the recent news that the municipality has defunded the present EDC and will reform under the umbrella of the municipality. We understand that there will be additional staff needed. Wawa has suffered a decline in population due to mine closures. Young people need to work. That is understandable. Wawa is unique in that it is far north and isolated. But there has been a resurgence in mining, bringing younger people to town, and a large increase in tourism due to the pandemic. It is wise for this community to develop a strategy to hold on to both. The defunded EDC had recognized that local economy, local business owners, the local creative community has to be made sustainable and viable in order to draw more people to this town who want to stay and call this place home. Our defunded EDC had implemented and had on the back burner these particular initiatives. Number one, CoLab, an absolute open door space for brainstorming small business help. Two, small business support. They helped about 300 local people. Three, the community table that includes food sovereignty and food security, health and wellness, which was a grant, the Goose Nest, the Wawa Arts Council. This all adds to the community profile. The ABO, which is the development of community use space. The DSS, Digital Service Squad. The DMS, Main Streets Shop Here. These were grants. They built a relationship with the BIA, Eat Shop Live, that the BIA said was one of the most beneficial programs supporting home-based businesses in years. I know there are projects I have missed, but this does not look like something that should be shut down. I've been told that money is a factor. If this town is to move forward in a sustainable way, We will need to consider money spent as an investment in our future. I believe that giving retired folks a place to call home and tourism are areas Wawa needs to focus on. But in order to attract either, there has to be a lively, spruced up, welcoming town to engage in. That means that the local economy has to be supported. Big business certainly has its place. But if there's no housing, no visible amenities, those folks will look elsewhere. We need more ideas, bigger ideas, younger people at the table. Why does different have to mean bad? Why does no control mean an issue? We need town council to support the creative community, which is only growing in this town. In the light of this, we have a number of questions to put to you, and I want to remind you that I am only the spokesperson. There are many people awaiting these answers. Number one, why is the EDC disbandment so important to council, and what are the actual savings? Number two, what is the new plan moving forward? Number three, how is the new plan going to be accomplished? This town needs help desperately, and shutting down a viable, successful entity to hand it over to a person who already has a full-time job presents obvious problems. In our view, this is a bad decision. The community deserves answers. We are the ones benefiting from these far-reaching programs. The EDC should remain at arm's length from council so they can properly do their job. I will make this endeavor and the answers public. I await your response. Thank you very much, Miigwech.
Thank you, Mary. I'll try and sum it up here, and might not be exactly 1, 2, 3 on the questions, but change is probably hard on everybody, but it's probably not a bad thing. Council has a tough decision to make sometimes, and sometimes they mostly make them for the benefit of the community. And this moving EDC in-house is and combining it with tourism, I think it's a good thing. I think council has supported it, and they will continue to support their decision. We have also been working on most of the things that you have named in this little deputation. Like we're working on housing, we're working on the lakefront. We're trying to get that ready. We're going to get back to operating the TIC this summer to make sure that we get the tourists back in town, and we hire a manager to run the TIC and get the students back out there. We did Silver Falls. We enlightened that place up for the tourists. So bringing this in-house, I think, is going to be able to have basically the same thing you're talking about, but in a different way. I think this person who we hire after this, the CAO finishes with the interim term, and we get somebody hired, that you'll be out there in the community looking at the same concerns you're talking about. And I think they'll be able to deal with it. So part of the new plan moving forward is to stick with the strategic plan. And one of the items on that strategic plan was to defund the EDC and move it in-house, which the decision has been made and will stand, and council supports it. And mostly we're going to follow our plan, and we're going to stay the course, and mostly try and accomplish some of the things in this term, finishing this term. So that's pretty well our stance on this, on what we did and what we stand for. So I'd like to sum that up with, that's my answer. I'd like to ask the councillors if they have any questions or comments on the situation. Councillor Chason?
Okay, I got, I'm on now. Okay. Just one question to whoever wants to answer this. Are we going to look at some of the people that's working with the EDC now for future jobs or something like this?
If any jobs do come open, everybody has a chance to apply like anybody else does. So there is opportunities there if jobs are posted, yes.
Thank you for that one.
You're welcome. Okay, seeing none, that's it. So I thank you, Mary, for your presentation, and we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to number 5.1, corporate planning meeting minutes from last meeting. Can I get a mover? Councillor Hatfield? Can I read the motion?
It's just a verbal motion,
Was
Mr.
this
Mayor.
verbal? Okay.
Yes.
All in favor? Motion carried. No business arising out of the previous meetings. New business, 7.1. Draft policy HS 015, the COVID-19 workplace and vaccination policy. I'll let Maury speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Last October, we brought forward a draft vaccine policy to council. With the ever-changing regulations and situations around COVID, staff asked for additional time to review the policy to develop something that would work best for our municipal workforce. Since that time, as council is aware, many things have changed, even as recently as early January. So the draft policy put forward to you tonight is essentially the same policy that we put forward in October, except with the changes required from legislation, such as should someone be affected with COVID, if you're vaccinated, you remain away from the workplace for 5 days. If you're unvaccinated, you remain away from the workplace for 10 days. So there's been some tweaking to the policy. But to remind council, in October, what generally this policy does, it's to protect our employees, protect those who come here, but ultimately to encourage vaccination of our workforce, and ultimately to make everyone safe and keep our caseload at our local hospital reduced as much as possible. But it's not to center out any individual employee, and it does its best to try to alleviate concerns that some people might not be treated fairly. So this policy, there are many example policies out there from other municipalities, but this policy put forward to council does not recommend that any unvaccinated employees or members of council or contractors be terminated. Instead, it recommends that we follow the health unit guidelines and request that unvaccinated persons take training. There is a training module throughout Ontario through health units that are offered that unvaccinated people are asked to take and sign off on. And secondly, that any unvaccinated person who attends the workplace in person, this would not apply to those employees who are working from home, but any person who attends the workplace that's unvaccinated would have to take a antigen COVID test at the beginning of their work week or once a week. So if someone's working Monday to Friday, they would have to take the test, rapid test on the Monday morning, disclose whether they were positive to their supervisor, and then we take appropriate action. But if it's negative, they remain at work. So the only clause to pay close attention to for council is under the 5.3 section. And basically we are suggesting that any unvaccinated personnel, which personnel in this instance would apply to council, our employees, full or part-time, our summer students, and our volunteer firefighters, that when the antigen tests are available, that they will be used by unvaccinated persons. Now, at this time, we had taken this back from council to review because antigen tests are very difficult to obtain. And through the clerk, we were approved by the province for antigen test kits. But since then, there's been a decline in the number available, and those that are available have gone to more of a priority basis to long-term care homes, to hospitals, and the like. We are in the process of working with our local pharmacy to obtain rapid tests. It's in process, but we do not have them today. So that is the policy. That is what we put forward in October. We are making every effort with our workforce to keep it as safe as possible. We have isolated our waterworks employees who, we are very concerned about, that they work in their own workspace and work safely and try as best possible to keep from other employees in the municipality. Some of our employees have been asked to work from home. So we have approximately 5 people working from home. We allowed those employees who can work from home to work from home. But we do have a workforce that is required in many of our departments to be at work. So we just want to pass a policy that is the best that we can to protect our employees as required under the occupational health and safety, but at the same time, try to not discriminate against our employees as a group and keep everybody safe and healthy. So that would be my summary, Mayor. If there's anything else you'd like me to elaborate on, I certainly will.
So on 5.2, all municipal employees are required to submit proof of vaccination or exemption by their immediate supervisor by February 1st. So as council members, who do they notify that they're unvaccinated and vaccinated?
That would be you, Mayor, as you're the supervisor of council, and then you would share with me your own status.
Okay. Any questions, councilors?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilor Hatfield.
Maury, this is for our town workers and that. Now, you know the government's been changing their mind quite often. Like, are you gonna have to update this every time something comes along?
If the legislation or regulations change, affect this policy, yes, we will. So there is a clause in this policy that we will do our best to change this policy by permitting the CAO to make changes as necessary according to regulation and immediately notify our employees as soon as possible. So there wouldn't be a need to bring this back to council every time a change is required, but provides the CAO the discretion or the authority to make those changes. And you're right, Councilor Hatfield, it does change all the time. So tonight we present this again as a draft for council to consider. We are not forwarding it to the regular agenda tonight, so we can get input back from our employees on this. We can investigate if the rapid tests will be available and how we can distribute those as efficiently as possible, given the shortage and the priorities around the community for those tests. So we still have some input that we'd welcome from council and our staff. So if this was something that council and would like to see, would bring it forward to the February 1st regular meeting for approval.
Councilor Jason, any comments?
Just got one small little, not a comment, but just to say how great the town used the COVID that came in this January, that everybody was on board. And I just like the way they did it, because it's like the work, something breaks down, you go to the source, you find it, you fix it. And I think the Algoma Health and the local people did a good job on that and kept everything at bay, and it went smooth. I just want to say thank you to all of them.
Thank you, Councilor. No other questions? We'll move on to 7.2, draft HS 016, right to disconnect. This is Maury going to speak on this as well.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The provincial government passed legislation in December that all municipalities are required to pass a disconnect from work policy. That policy does not have to be approved by the municipality until June 1st, I believe is the deadline. We bring this to council similar to the vaccine policy in a draft form for input from council, as well as opportunity now that we present it to council to bring it to our employees for input. The regulations for the approving laws have not been developed by the provincial government. So indications are that municipalities should hold off a little longer before approving them. Those regulations, given the COVID situation and other things that are happening, are to come. And how this affects our workforce is still unknown. At this time, we would have to review this policy in terms of union requirements, the requirements of our management and other staff that are on call, and see how this legislation works. But this is a draft policy as recommended by Human Resource Association we belong to. So it's put forward for draft for comment at this time.
Just, Morgan, can you give just an example of why we want to have right to disconnect? Just so our council can understand where this comes from, like it's the texting on the weekend and stuff like that. Yeah.
It comes to essentially protect workers' mental health and right to disconnect and have time away from work. And as we are in this age of information technology and access to our phones and devices 24 hours a day, it's an effort from the provincial government, supported by municipalities, to ensure that workers understand that they don't have to respond to an email they might receive at 11 p.m. at night, or that they aren't expected to respond to that email. So I believe that the purpose of the policy is essentially for council in our case to communicate to our employees that their time away from work is valued and recognized for their own health and safety, and to put it in writing as a policy.
Any more questions? Any questions? Oh,
Mr. Mayor, we did add this to the regular agenda, so if council is okay with it, I'd like to recommend that we have it severed when we come to that, to the regular council meeting. And it would be item 13.3 on the regular agenda.
Councilor Chason, any questions or comments? I just want to give a chance because he's. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 7.3, schedule of fees. Manuela, are you on the line?
I am. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share some information on the schedule of fees. So we have finished preparing the 2022 schedule of fees, and it's part of your agenda. We've made changes to the fees, either not at all, or by applying cost of living increase, or I think more often than not, a comparison of the municipalities around us, just to come more into line with what's happening there. So a good example of that would be airport parking, or even the building department. We did a good comparison in both of those areas. Water and sewer rates, I wanted to make special mention of. So water and sewer rates, as council knows, are based on the revenues required to meet the year's expenditures, or the money we need to raise in order to operate and achieve our capital goals. So both capital and operating. We aren't expecting any material changes in the operating. The operating statement should be, or the operating needs should be fairly consistent with previous years. However, there was significant impact from the capital. If we remember from the budget presentation for the capital, we're putting in new water filters this year. There's the intake valve to deal with from Wawa Lake. There's hydrant rehabilitation. And then in the long-term area, we're looking at saving for water meters. We're saving for the sewer jet vacuum. So there was significant impact to the water and sewer budget from those items. So some of the things that we did to mitigate the outcome of those expenses and keep the increases to a reasonable amount were we first drew on the water and rate stabilization reserve. We did affect the fixed rate by 2%. It was a fairly small increase. And then the variable rates changed from for water from 75 cents to 84 cents. So really people, by being conservative with their consumption, can affect their bills that way as well. And the sewer rates have changed from 44 cents to 52 cents. And then the other really important item I wanted to mention was that arena and curling ice, although there's changes in the rates, those rates don't take effect until the next season, which is September 1 of 2022. So are there any questions?
Go ahead, yeah. Go ahead.
I have some questions about the fees that you have for the parks, special event. Could you explain
Sorry, for which?
for the fees for the parks? And they have special event fees. Can you explain what?
Yeah, I questioned that as well, and maybe Alex would be able to more speak to that, what the special event in the park might be. It's been part of the schedule of fees for a long time. There were no changes to it. So I'm guessing that it would be if a group wanted to hold a special event in a park and just have an exclusive use of that park, that they would pay that fee. I don't know how we would really enforce that, but Alex could probably speak to it a little better than I could.
Yeah, so two reasons. First reason was a couple of years ago, we redid the community services side of the schedule and fees, and we tried to maintain a consistent set across our schedule of fees. So you'll always see a youth recreation fee, an adult recreation fee, a special event fee. That fee is typically applied to large and usually commercial type events. So like we were approached a couple years ago, a circus was interested in setting up in the sports field. So that would be our special event fee. Or if there's some very large event that isn't directly associated with the municipality, which probably happens once every 2 or 3 years, we have commercial organizations come in and set up a movie in the park and they charge for that. That's where we would apply a special event fee. So it gets applied extremely rarely, but not never. So it's in there.
Great, thanks for your help with that.
Thanks, Alex.
Any other questions, Councillor Ken? Councillor, I think it's good.
Manuela, an idea of how long it's been since we've raised any of these fees?
We look at the rates annually, and there's changes made to not all of the fees, but the ones that we feel necessitated change on an annual basis.
There's some fees that haven't been changed in a very long time.
There are some fees that probably have not been changed in a very long time, and they're also consistent for the most part in what's happening in other municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Jason, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Manuel, I have one question. Is it possible to get even last year's, you know how you have a comparison, like you've got a document here, but I look at it and I don't know what's gone up or what's gone down or really anything about it because I have nothing to compare it to?
Absolutely. I have one like this on my computer where there's a red section on the side that will have last year's rates. So I can send it out to all of council tomorrow.
That would be awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
No other questions?
I have
Oh, we got a question. Here we go.
Sorry, yeah.
No, that's fine.
Alex, this one's probably for you too. You say the fees for the community's fundraising for the meeting room and that. Can you explain those fees?
Those fees are probably our least used ones. So the theory as it went was whenever we have community groups, so we're talking like Wawa Minor hockey, figure skating, curling, things like that, when they do fundraising specific events, That's where we try, like, they're not really youth recreation events because they're not actually doing a recreation program. So that's where we typically apply that fee. I'll be honest, that fee gets used almost never, because typically those user groups, when they're trying to do a larger event like that or something to do with community fundraising, they approach council for a fee waiver. So it's not something that gets applied too often, but it's there in the case that council decides not to grant a fee waiver to those community groups, in which case we apply the community fundraising rate with the idea that that particular group is making some money off of it in a way that doesn't represent a specific recreation activity that would fall within the youth recreation or adult recreation fee. And it is typically limited to user groups that are community groups. So if, you know, Sioux Minor Hockey came here and they tried to do a fundraiser, we typically charge them the commercial rate versus the community fundraising rate, because they're not a member of our community who also helps offset the cost of our facility.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
Good. No, this is the opportunity.
That's
Sure
not
counts.
it.
Yeah. Any
This
other
is probably gonna be for Dan.
questions?
You have fees for unfreezing water lines. Does that mean from the water line from the road to a house? Or from?
Yes. Yes,
not
it does,
from the-
Kathy.
Okay, so it stays the same, that if it's on the property of the towns, then you don't pay that fee, right?
If it's on the town property, from the house,
In front of a house, the water main to the road, say, when it freezes there, because sometimes it does freeze in that part, that doesn't change that the owner is gonna get charged for that part, right?
no, they won't.
No, sorry, I think the intent is that it's.
I'm
for
kind
the
of confused
unfreezing
at
of
what
the
you're
line.
asking, Kathy.
Yeah, regardless of where the line is.
If I may, Mayor, I think I could help.
Go ahead.
I believe your question might be, when a freezing is the result of the homeowner's responsibility, but it does freeze on the line that goes to the main sewer line, there is a charge for the homeowner, whether that line is on municipal property or on private property. When the freezing is a result of the municipality, there is no charge. So is that, I'm wondering if that's answering your
Well,
question.
no, because I've had it freeze, but it's from the water main to the road. And they had to come in and bring that machine and unfreeze it for me. So that's what I'm asking. There's not gonna be a fee for that.
If the freezing is determined to be, and the director has that responsibility, if the freezing is determined to be at the cause of the homeowner, something the homeowner is responsible for, then the homeowner will pay. It depends who is at fault for the freezing, because there are several examples. For example, a homeowner who shuts off for the winter, there's no water, and it might freeze at the connection. It's not the municipality's responsibility.
I get that. I mean, but living in the Mission, we've had lots of houses that the water froze many winters. But most of the time, it was from the road to the main in your front yard.
The curb stop, yeah.
Yes, so we didn't get charged for it because that's where it froze. That's what I'm asking, I guess, that those fees are not included when they say unfreeze water line.
Again, at the discretion of the director, if it's felt that it's the fault or responsibility of the homeowner, there is a fee applied. And Dan, I'm sorry, I'll defer to you if I'm explaining it correctly. I hope that's answering the question. There is a policy I can share.
You go
with you.
away for the winter and you, yes, turn off your water and that, of course, I understand that. But there's sometimes that it does freeze and doesn't matter what you do. Even if you're home, it still freezes from that section.
It's a very complex question. We have a water supply bylaw that I will share with all of council, and that does set out what I'm referring to when it's deemed that the freezing, it could be resolved. I just used going away. It could be someone didn't turn their bypass on. They're on a bypass, they didn't. It could be a number of factors, and the director determines, right, and in consultation with the homeowner and other experts, plumbers, who's responsible, and there's a fee charged when the municipality is deemed not responsible.
So I guess at the time a water line freezes, Dan or his employees go there and they determine what the issue is and then who gets charged, basically.
Yes.
Is that the way it works, Dan?
Can I jump in here for a
Yes,
second, guys?
yes, Mayor, it is.
Okay, yeah.
May I ask a
No,
question
no.
on that?
I
part?
know it's
still, I just have, maybe it's because
Go
I
for it.
knew there's, the next thing is about the Wawa Transit Bus. They have a seniors rate for in town, but when the bus comes out to the Mission, there's no seniors rate. Is there any way we can get that changed?
The Mission would be considered part of the town. It would be the same rate. The Mission is part of Wawa.
Seniors rate for coming out to the Mission.
Manuela, we actually have a special rate for senior and disabled. They're the same rate.
The
Yeah,
question is
regardless of
for
whether.
all the
they're-
town or just the town site?
It's for the town site, and the Mission Highway have a different rate.
So
I
that
just don't
could be
have it.
changed as Councillor Cannon is suggesting there. We could review that rate and revise, and that the seniors rate would apply to anywhere within municipal boundaries. We could review that.
Absolutely, we can.
Can we note that then somewhere? Can we take a look at that? That's a good idea. That's.
So, Mr. Mayor, would that be the wish of council to have it lowered so it's the same as in town?
Question. What I'd like to see is.
Well,
Yeah,
it's $3 for in town, but it's 7, and if you go over the 10 kilometers, it's a different price.
Yeah.
But even $5, like, I know they have to come to the Mission and it costs money to do that. But just giving somebody, a senior, a break instead of just in town. I mean,
Yeah, we should. Like, we've got two rates in town, seniors and regular. Then why shouldn't we have the same rates for the Mission senior? And makes sense.
Okay, yep.
We'll stick with that.
Yeah. Make that change.
Yeah.
one more.
Go ahead.
This is for you, Kevin.
You sit in my old chair anyway.
Is that what all these questions
Yes.
are coming from? See? Kevin, you have call outs on the highway for residential. Can you explain the cost of that? Who gets charged?
Highway calls are invoiced through MTO. So it's misleading when it says residential versus non-residential. It's any incident that's on a highway goes through MTO, and then MTO deals with either the individual or their insurance company.
So could we look at a new term for that line instead of using that language?
We could. I'm not sure exactly how you would want it designated.
Well, like, I was just thinking in terms like a residential or non-residential, it really doesn't seem to apply to a car accident or a vehicle on fire. Would we term it as a call out outside town boundaries or something like that?
Yeah, we can change that. I'll talk with Manuela in the morning.
Yeah, talk it over, if it's possible, maybe just so, when somebody reads the fee schedule, that they'll understand what it means.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
Appreciate that. Councillor Hatfield, go ahead.
Water and sewer, that's Dan Beach. I'm wondering if the residents of Wawa should be told that their water meters will be at their expense if anything happens to them. Like, I've mentioned that to other people and none of them know that. Do you think we should send out a note saying, like, I was surprised that the meter broke and I had to pay for it. So I think the people in Wawa should realize that that water meter goes at their expense. They're responsible for the cost. And I was looking at the cost of them and like if mine broke, I would want to have something in my savings account to cover that. That's the way my budget works. So I really think the people in Wawa should know about the water meter.
That's a good point, Mayor, and we did include notices around that when we implemented the meter rate change, but we can put another notice. It's a great idea in maybe the next water billing or in local media to remind homeowners and how they can find that information in our water supply bylaw online.
And they could just look online for what the cost of it. I don't know how you want to do it, but I was surprised.
And what is deemed that the homeowner has to pay for it?
Again, Councillor Cannon and all of council, in the water supply bylaw, it very clearly sets out the requirements that if it's neglect, if it's a result of freezing at the homeowner's cause, if there is tampering, there is a very set list of criteria that, again, staff can use with their background and experience. And there's an appeal process as well to council that makes it very clear that when it's the cause of the homeowner that meter breaks, it's the homeowner's responsibility. When it's maybe the MXU reader on it breaks or the batteries run out, then it's the municipality's responsibility. So in that water supply bylaw, it does set that up.
Yeah.
Yep, I think doing some.
Well, I think, yeah, people just either don't read it or worry about it until it happens. And sometimes a friendly reminder is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Councillor Cannon. One more
Dan?
question. Who's getting this one?
Dan, you have equipment rentals in their fees for equipment rentals. Can you explain what rentals you do with township equipment?
If contractors are looking or we rent it out, say to Mishpicotton First Nations, if their grader breaks down or something, that's something that we would consider renting them. Or if we have to do work for other contractors, then that is the municipality's rental fee for them. That's what we charge them.
Okay, yeah, because it just has, again, residential and non-residential, so I just wondered, if I could over the next time.
Excuse me, pardon me, Councillor Cannon. Those two categories, that it's non-resident for people or companies that aren't located in Wawa.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
You good? You sure?
I got one question, if I may.
Okay, go ahead there, Councillor.
A question to Dan or Maury, and maybe relates to Councillor Cannon too, that the water freeze in the mission, you don't have bypass because you guys are all on septic systems. I think, Dan, you own one, so you could clarify what goes on with septic systems. That's why there's no water bypass going into your system.
We do not have bypasses in the mission, Bill.
That's what yeah. But how do they get their water from not freezing if there's no bypass on them?
We hope that they don't.
Good point. Thanks, Dan.
Councilor Jason, any more questions? You're
No, I'm
good?
good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 7.4. Alex, you've got a report for months of October, December, if you want to go ahead.
Thanks very much. So I apologize to council. Usually we do monthly reports, but this fall semester, especially with reopening the facility and everything that's happened over the past couple months, has gotten really busy. So I summed it all up into one report to take a look at. That really condenses everything that we did this fall, which was primarily focused on reopening the facility and buttoning up a couple capital projects into one space. So a couple notes on capital projects. I included some pictures for council of some of the work that was done at Scenic High Falls. The work is substantially complete, which means that it's reached 80 to 90% completion in terms of the contract value. So the only thing that's remaining outstanding from the particular contract this year is a 10% holdback, which is related to the outside of the actual washrooms, but everything is done on the inside in the structure, and that'll be completed next year. We also completed in the fall the refrigeration plant suction header, which was one of those safety items that we talked to council about as part of the 2021 capital budget. That was completed in the fall successfully by our refrigeration contractor with essentially no downtime on the plant, which was great. Other things, I've included some booking statistics as well as in the appendix, a sample of what an average week looked like for us this particular year. We were way up from last year in terms of the bookings that we were able to host, simply because the public health restrictions allowed us to not have buffer times in between a lot of the stuff that we did, which gave us way more time in the evening and especially during the prime times to be able to fit as many groups in as we could. So obviously November was our best month just because of how things worked out between holidays and the closure in December. We had 422 individual bookings, so much more than 10 a day, and 534 hours booked throughout the month. So something that, given the current restrictions, we're really happy and really appreciate the hard work that obviously the staff at the community center have done, but also all of the user groups whose volunteers really were able to make a lot of the stuff we did this year happen. It was volunteers from user groups who were doing things like checking vaccination certificates, making sure contact tracing was being done, things like that. And we wouldn't have been able to host so much programming without the hard work of those people. Other things to talk about, you can see in the community events and recreation section, we had a pretty busy season in terms of the amount of stuff that we were able to accomplish and bring to the community each month. So I gave a listing there of some of the things that happened in October, November, and December that were either coordinated or implemented specifically by staff. As well as some statistics regarding social media, in which we had almost 14,500 views in the month of November on our page. And we're finding that specifically because of the pandemic and less people are coming in to talk to us, a really excellent way to communicate with the public that reinforces the things that we put into traditional media. Other than that, the only big thing to talk about right now is we are completing work on the Mmcc modernization application. I actually finished the second draft of those funding applications to both the NOHFC and ICIP today. We're waiting on some information from our engineers. Unfortunately, we were working with two engineering teams and both of them have members who have gotten ill with COVID. So we're wishing them a speedy recovery. And that has obviously delayed some of the reports that we were looking for, but we're hoping to bring that back to council quite soon to be able to apply before the end of the month. Any questions for me?
Go ahead, Councilor Hepburn.
Alex, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a hard time hearing you.
Sorry.
October and December, you have goose nests on there. You guys take care of the goose nests?
So we work with the EDC on it. So the goose nest that we typically help out with are the logistical things. So things like, shutting down the road and putting up barricades and stringing all of the lights and making sure that there's lights inside the nest for the winter one. So a lot of those things are the things that we help out with. And then, of course, we do use the goose nest for some of our events as well. So, for example, our fall fair use that facility in Lions Beach to host that event.
Thanks.
Any other questions? I got a couple of, Alex, I really like your Facebook, the community page. That's in like real time, so it's like you can see what's happening. And I like that, and all the stuff you're doing there is good stuff, so just keep the good work up.
Thank you.
Okay, well, no other questions, answers on that. We'll move on to 7.5, appointment procedure to fill council vacancy. Kathy, are you going to talk to this?
Mayor, you had asked me to put this on the agenda, so you could review with council the procedure at the next special council meeting scheduled for January 25th, correct, the Tuesday? That's when a special council meeting has been called to review the appointment or undertake the appointment review. And in the appointment procedure on the agenda tonight, it was to review with council the procedures, and that is really under section 6.0, basically that council will have all eligible candidates as declared by the clerk available at the meeting to come and speak to council for a maximum of 10 minutes. They can present their background, their resume, whatever they'd like to say to council. And then all are sequestered in a separate room, and the candidates brought out to speak to council. And that we propose in this process that there be no question and answer period of council. So the matter is whether council wants to have a specific set of questions developed ahead of time for any candidate, or if council chooses as recommended to just have the candidates come, they have up to 10 minutes to speak. Then they would sit down or be placed in the Zoom meeting, which is the second request for council to consider tonight on that. So if we could stick to the question on process, I think you just wanted to review that with council.
That's exactly right. Yeah, just I know it's just confusing, and I just want to make sure that we now one thing I want to answer when we do our voting question. Everybody's going to go to the room, come back, do their 10 minutes spiel, and go back to the room. Then they'll all come in back to the room at the same time, and then we'll do our voting.
Yes.
In public.
Yes.
Right on. Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Go ahead.
However, if there's a tie in votes, we may have to ask those candidates to speak again. The individual with the least amount of votes would not be considered in the second round of voting.
So who's going to be the official?
The clerk.
The clerk.
Like the referee?
The clerk is
Okay.
responsible for overseeing the process.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
So the second part, Mayor, of why we wanted to bring this forward is due to the COVID regulations that are in place until January 26th, unless the province indicates otherwise. This special meeting can be held in person or through Zoom platform, depending on the number of qualified candidates that put forward their names for council. And if it's a large amount, it could present some problems to an in-person meeting, especially when council considers that all candidates may be present in the room at one time. It is the ideal for council, of course, to meet in person, but staff is recommending, and the technology is available through Zoom, where all candidates would participate by Zoom. We are able to set, the clerk knows how to set rooms that are separate from the regular meeting. and then you bring them in and out. So although, you know, it may be challenging if there are internet problems, but it is council's decision whether it wishes to do an in-person or a Zoom meeting for that special council meeting on the 25th. And as far as we understand the regulations, municipalities and councils are exempt from the 5-person limit. However, they do encourage councils to try to accommodate that guideline where possible.
Well, I guess we have to post our meetings, what is it, 72 hours before, like, put the agenda out, like on the Thursday, do it on Thursday.
Yeah.
Because it's a special council meeting, I
It'll
believe the agenda is 24 hours.
Could be up to 24 hours, yeah.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that is because we can wait till we get closer to see what numbers we have. And then pick a process. I mean, if we had 20 people, they're gonna change it if we only have 3 people. 3 people we could have in there and do everybody at the same time. In front of everybody.
And my
So-
recommendation as a benchmark for council would be as long as we don't exceed a 10-person. So it would seem reasonable in the space that we have based on square footage and maintaining the 6-foot distance requirement, that the maximum would be, if all council were here in person, you know, an additional up to 4 or 5 people. That would be the maximum. Now, I forgot to include to you and I, Kathy, so
5 here
the
now.
6 feet, 20.
Before, for
So
additional.
maybe maximum of 10 people additional. If there's less than 4 candidates, an in-person. If there's more than 4 candidates, Zoom. As a benchmark for.
As a benchmark, yes.
Yeah, um,
Go ahead.
Maureen, so they don't sit in here, they sit in another room and individually do their presentation?
Yes,
That's,
So nobody's in the room at the same time?
but they could be.
During
If we
voting,
decided to go that.
during voting, they
Oh.
would be,
Okay.
they'll all be here during vote.
Okay, but not.
not during their
the
presentation.
with the virtual. Like, no, one at a time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't.
And same with the voting, if council chose to use the Zoom platform for all of the candidates, they would all be brought into the Zoom meeting when the voting is happening. When they're conducting their presentations, they will be brought in to a breakout room.
Well, that's, so whatever happens, happens, like if there's more than 4, then we have to do it a different way.
If council agrees with the recommendation, because the clerk would then make that decision in consultation with the mayor, if you agree,
Mhm.
on, you know, the Monday before the meeting,
It's,
Yeah, the Monday before,
before the Tuesday
that
night
way, yeah,
meeting.
all that early. It's a deadline for applications.
Is next Wednesday, 2 p.m.,
So then we'll know that.
January
So we'll know
19th,
then.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, good.
January 19th.
it's just nice to see, to hear them one-on-one, because it's just much clearer. And I'm sure they would like that too.
Any other questions? Counselor Jason? Any questions? Good. Okay, we've got no camera session. Great. No business arising from the closed session. Next meeting date will be Tuesday, February the 1st. Can I get a mover to close the meeting at 7:30?
Yep.
Counselor Cannon? Is there a motion for that?
Verbal,
Verbal, okay. Let's close that. Right, 7:30. Okay, we'll move on to the next meeting. Take a minute for a breather here. Special counsel.
Are you guys having stuff on the computer?
Your email?
No, on my page.
something there now.
Yeah, I don't know how this came up. What do I do?
Oh. There's no X. Oh,
And
oh,
oops, oops, oops.
put your cursor like on the outside and maybe that will minimize the. I can't see where your cursor, this is in your way, just put your cursor like somewhere on the,
Right, right, right here.
yeah,
And here.
yeah, yeah, and click it.
Give me a second.
I just wanted to read that. Oh, somehow it's locked.
Hey, welcome back. We'll call this meeting to order at 7:32 PM. I'll acknowledge the staff and on the virtual and councilors are in the council chambers here. Disclosure of community interest, any? Seeing none, we'll move on. Number 3, approval of agenda. I'd like to, we do that before we. What, sorry. Amendment, item 13.6.
7.
Bylaw, severed bylaw to adopt schedule fees. Do we still want to do that or are we okay with that?
I'm okay with it now, but I think it's wrong to keep it.
Fees. We want
I'm
to wait?
okay that they're, because they're gonna
They'll be
change the
amended.
things and change the wording.
But the schedule of fees will be amended.
I don't.
Counselor Chason? Are you okay with the
As amended.
schedule of fees?
I'm
Or do we
okay with the
wanna- do we wanna-
recommendation.
we say?
Yeah.
With the recommendations discussed at the corporate.
Okay, good. Okay, we won't sever that.
But 13
Yeah, I go to the next one. 13.3, if we can sever that, that's a bylaw to accept the right to disconnect from work. Why did we want to do that? For the reason,
because we want to be able to bring it to the union, to the
yes. so we
staff
wanna
and council,
review
to
the
have that
staff first.
opportunity to review that policy closer.
Okay, we got those. That cleared up, so do we have a motion?
A mover and a seconder for that severance.
Oh. Councillor Cannon and Councillor Hatfield. Second. Movers.
So I'll read the motion. Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon, resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 be approved as amended.
All in favor? Motion carried. Delegations or presentations are none. Number 5, announcements of given of notice. These are just announcements, right? Go to number 6. Adoption of minutes, resolution.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that the following minutes of the meetings of council be adopted as presented. Minutes of a special meeting of council held on Tuesday, December 14, 2001, as contained on pages 1 to 4, inclusive of the minute book. B, minutes of a regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, December 14, as contained on pages 1 to 8, inclusive of the minute book. And C, minutes of a special meeting of council held on Thursday, December 16, 2021, as contained on pages 1 and 2, inclusive of the minute book.
All in favor? Motion carried. There's a number of things here in number 7, for your reading. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on it, but, it's just more or less correspondence. If there's anything that refers to something in our staffing or meetings, just give somebody a call or discuss it with somebody. Number 8, consent agenda. Approval of consent agenda. Is it a resolution?
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon, resolved that the items listed under consent agenda item 8.2 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Motion carried. Go down to number 9.1, staff reports. Receive staff reports. Alex Patterson. There's a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive staff report AP 2021-01 report for the months of October to December 2021, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Motion carried. There's no notice of motions. We'll go to 13 bylaws. First, second, and third reading.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk do sign this and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding, bylaw number 3458-22 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings held on the 16th day of December 2021 and the 11th day of January 2022. Bylaw number 3460-22 to provide for interim tax levy and the payment of interim taxes for the year 2022. Bylaw number 3461-22 to authorize temporary borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022. Bylaw number 3462-21 to adopt the schedule of fees for the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa for the year 2022 as amended.
All in favor? Motion carried. We'll move into closed session at 7:38.
I have a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Cannon. Resolved that the committee proceed in camera at 7:38 p.m. in order to address the following matters pertaining to 1, a legal issue. There's 2 items regarding sale of land. It's related to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
All in favor? Motion carried. There you go. What happened to Council Chason?
He's still.
He's supposed to be there?
Hello? Currently, okay.
My sister's gang.
I don't
my sister's-
So can you hear me?
Yes, I could.
Yeah, he can't, I can't hear him.
How about now?
Well, remember all this trouble we had with that guy? over there?
Yes. That's when I found out.
Yeah.
Then I didn't know.
Bill, it's Maury. Call me back. Bye. He's not answering.
Okay,
Bill, can you call Maury's cell number?
I will do that right now.
He's getting up.
We have a whole phone system.
In-
He's left.
Yeah.
That's what I use all the time.
Sister can't hear us by asking, can you see us?
Oh, it works.
What phone,
I just asked him to
Can
call.
you see us?
is it Charles? Bill?
I didn't know. I told you.
Right, got it.
You guys across the room.
That's-
TV. Everywhere I went to the American.
Can you see us here? I'm just waiting for.
That was
Bill?
That was pretty well.
Bill's gonna
Oh,
call you.
she's like, I hear you now.
I like it because it's not long.
Yeah, but I'm not muted.
I call,
Okay, mute yourself.
when my son has
Mute everything.
TV.
I'm here. Yes, just the audio. Yeah. Yeah. But I got visual but no audio. Yeah, I could hear you pretty good, but I can't talk back to you guys. Well, I could just listen if you want me to on the phone.
bit, but there's wind chill.
One there.
21.
Have to get the yellow back.
Coming back, we get to Montreal River and it's -9.
I know, I'm trying. I know it's not letting me.
Okay, we gotta come on. Please. We have a motion.
Yes. Moved by Counselor Cannon. Resolved that the meeting close at 8:28 PM.
All in favor? Motion carried. February the 1st, 2022.
My sister said we're muted, she can't hear you. Oh, she can hear.
Adjournment, we'll close this meeting at 8:28.
Moved by Counselor Cannon that the meeting close at 8:28 PM.
All in favor? Motion carried.
So the 25th